Welcome once again to another edition of the Hyperion Adventures podcast. I'm Tom. I'm here as always with my wonderful wife, Michelle.
Hello, everybody.
We're so happy you joined us again for another week. We appreciate it. However you found us today, whether it was on SoundCloud or Stitcher, or whether it was on iTunes or Google Play, where you could subscribe to us if you kind of just stumbled across us. If you subscribe to us on either of those, we'll come right to your device, right to your phone. You won't even have to look for us. So we really appreciate however you found us. And we'd like to give a shout out to Robert, who sent us a note on Facebook, said, you guys have hit your stride faster than any other podcast I listened to. And he loved the last episode. So thank you, Robert, very much for that.
That was awesome. We appreciate it.
He did also want to point out, however, that we may have glossed over a little bit in our discussion of magic bands from last week's episode. We talked about how they can be used to make all your purchases while you're at the Walt Disney World Resort. But he pointed out that we failed to mention that the information isn't actually stored on the Magic Band. It's actually linked to your My Disney Experience account. And yes, we did kind of gloss over that, but we want to be sure you know that it's more secure that way. So thank you, Robert, for pointing that out. We want to make sure that everybody understands the process when they go to Walt Disney World and about Magic Bands, because they are really wonderful things.
Right. That's a great point. And if ever anything that we said leads to more questions, feel free to send us those. And we'd love to respond to those. And again, we really appreciate the feedback. Constructive criticism is our friend.
Absolutely. I mean, we tend to get carried away in some of the things we're talking about here. We may gloss over something that's very important out there. So thank you, Robert, for pointing that out. If you want to contact us, you can find us on Twitter at Hyperion Podcast. You can find us where Robert found us, on Facebook and also on Instagram at Hyperion Adventures Podcast. You can email us at HyperionAdventurespodcast@gmail.com. And we also have a website. We're on the web at HyperionAdventurespodcast.com. So thanks again, Robert. Thanks to everybody out there who's listening to us. And by the way, thinking about doing something along the lines of, for those of you who have been with us from the beginning, who are starting out with us, we're trying to, grow this podcast. Maybe for those of you who are with us for the first 2, maybe 3 months, I'm thinking about starting like kind of an OG, original, listener type grouping that maybe we come up with something special for you, whether it be a mug or a hat or a t-shirt or maybe just some meetups or something for those of you out there who have joined us from the beginning and really helped us launch this podcast. So if you're one of those people, please contact us. We also want to know where you're listening to us. I know we've checked out on some of the things, and there's people listening to us in the United Kingdom, in Mexico, and all over the United States. We really want to hear from you and where you're coming from.
Right. And that's a very cool announcement. I have to say, you did tell me you had something to announce today that I wasn't aware of. So that's very cool and exciting. And yes, we look forward to doing that. And again, we really do appreciate everybody from all over. I know on Twitter we have some fans, and I have some fans from France.
That's
and
right.
Hooray!
Yes.
Soccer world champions.
That's right. Congratulations to France today. They beat Croatia 4-2 in the World Cup. It was a really fun match. And I know we've been to Disneyland Paris a couple times and Paris in general a couple times. And so we were kind of rooting for France to pull it out today. And they did handily. So congratulations to the Bleu Blanc and Rouge for coming through for that victory today.
Excellent.
Yeah. So onward as we go, and we're talking about Disneyland Paris. Well, coming up soon is the Disneyland Paris Magic Run Weekend. That's just coming up here in September on the 20th through the 23rd. But also coming up here is the registration is opening up this week for the Walt Disney World Marathon Weekend. It opens up, I believe it's on Tuesday of this week. If you're already signed up for the Wine and Dine Half Marathon Weekend, well, training for that should have started last week. So that leads us into what our main topic is going to be today. And that's going to be getting you set to be ready for these races that are coming up, whether it's these 2 races or these 3, we're counting the Paris weekend, whether it's the Disney Princess Half Marathon Weekend, whether it's the Star Wars Rival Run Weekend. We're here. We are big fans of Run Disney. We've run a lot of races. We've gone from barely being able to do a 5K to running a half marathon just this last spring out of the Walt Disney World Resort. And so we're here to kind of tell you what worked for us to kind of get you, see if this will work for you, to get you involved and get you ready for your next race.
Right. Now, At one of our earliest, maybe our first,
It was our first
podcast, we did a little teaser then about our very first Run Disney event and something unusual that happened there. So we did mention that we were going to bring it up at a later podcast, and so now this is it. We're going to do the big reveal.
This is where we're going to completely embarrass ourselves.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So that way, part of this is to let you know that, it's all about the fun.
That's right. It's all about the fun and it's all about the stories. And we have a story here for you. Our very first Run Disney race that we ever ran was in November of, I believe it was 2015. And that was the Avengers 5K. I think it was actually the Thor 5K is what it was, but it was the Avengers Half Marathon weekend. Even though that was our first Run Disney race, we had done a couple races before that. Not that we're not Disney related. And a lot of those, the start time is like 8, 7:30, maybe at earliest it's like 7. So we got the information for this race, and I'm like, okay, the start time is 6:30. Well, those of you who know Run Disney out there know that 6:30 is not the start time. There's never that start time, okay? But we had never done one of these before, so we just assumed, that's pretty early. But okay, I get it. They got to get the park open. So we're running out the door. We're at our hotel. This is at Disneyland, the Disneyland Resort. We're at a hotel nearby. And we're leaving there at like 5:45 or something like that. Figuring, we'll get there in plenty of time.
I remember thinking that, why are you making me go so much earlier? Good thing you did.
That's right. And so we're heading out the door and we're walking along and we're like, no, there's not many people out here. We're expecting to see a lot of people, but it is our first Disney race. We're like, maybe they're behind us. Maybe they're already there. I don't know. We get out there, we get through security, we get over the bridge. If you know where the downtown Disney area is in the Disneyland Resort, there's a bridge right over there that passes right over, I believe it's Disneyland Road there.
Right.
And that's where usually the start lines are. And we look, and they're already starting races out there. We're like, oh my goodness, what is going on? Well, of course, the start time was 5:30. I had not looked at the information. It was all my fault. We were running late. So we're running to the other security, getting out there. We get up with some people that are volunteering or helping some of the officials with the race. They're like, they see we're coming, they see us running, and they're like, oh my goodness, we don't know if we can get you in there. But they jumped us into a golf cart, raced us up to
VIP
that's
style.
right, raced us up to the line. They're like, this is only as far as we can go. We ran up. We were in the very last of the corrals, the very last people
running
to show up for that race. Just barely made it in time before the start. And from then on, we've been nothing but early for any other race. But we had a great time. It never stopped us from coming back. It's just a funny story to tell.
It was funny. And I mean, at the time, it was, oh my gosh, if we can't get into it, how depressing. Because we had gotten up there the day before, gotten our bibs, etc. But, it was a fun story to recall, having started our Run Disney adventures in a very, let's say, high-powered way.
We were really warmed up. And we're going to talk about getting warmed up here in our training tips leading into this. But we were really warmed up by the time we got to that start line. And thank goodness so many people run in these races, because if it had been like your normal average race somewhere that you may see in your neighborhood, they probably would have finished by the time we actually started that race. So thank goodness for all those people out there. And thank goodness for the volunteers and the other Run Disney officials that helped get us up there and get us to the starting line. And like I said, we've never been late since.
Right.
So that leads us on to, after that embarrassing story, you obviously will want to listen to us on how our running tips are. No, seriously, I've run 5Ks, 10Ks, and now we've run a half marathon. Michelle has run a 5K, skipped right over, after running several 5Ks, has skipped right over that 10K and ran a half marathon for the first time at the Star Wars Dark Side half marathon just this last April. So we've gone through these things. We know kind of what works for us to train for these, and we're hoping maybe some of this might give you some tips on what might work for you. But we need to start off by saying, look, we're not doctors. We're not certified trainers. Although Michelle is in the medical industry and is a registered nurse, she is in management now and doesn't actually attend to patients. So don't take
What do
all
I
of
know?
it in your medical tips. If you're concerned at all, if you're just starting out, you should probably contact your doctor, contact a certified trainer to make sure that what's right for you, if this is right for you. But we're just going to tell you what has worked for us. And also, Run Disney, their website has some great training plans to get you ready for the race, including calendars on how you can get ready for each specific race. They do a really good job of that. And some of what we're going to talk about today is kind of based off of that. Some of what we did, we kind of taken what we saw from other things, what we saw from Run Disney, and kind of adapted it to our training process.
Right. And, one of the nice things about running in a Run Disney race that is also helpful is that you do get some information, whether you're going to the area where you're picking up your bibs. They have a lot of vendors there and a lot of people with information. You generally get a free running magazine, and that also has some great advice for, improving your running styles or improving your endurance, etc. So there's a lot of information out there, and we're not trying to say we're the experts on this, but we can share, again, kind of the fun parts of how to get ready and how to make it something that can work for you, especially if you've never done a Run Disney race before.
Right, exactly.
Or any run.
Exactly. Like I said, this is what worked for us. You may take it and you can use a piece of it. You can use none of it, discard it all, or maybe, follow and do along exactly. The main thing with this is to find out what works for you. So let's get started. And the key thing to get started with is what equipment do you need? And bottom line, basic, what you're going to need if you're going to start running or walking or anything for any sort of distance, even if it's just 3 miles regularly, you're going to need good shoes. Basically, think of your car. Your shoes are not only your tires, but they're also your shock absorbers that are on your car, only they're for your body. And so, if you're going to get out there and do some of this anywhere seriously, where you're getting in somewhere between 9 miles a week or 6 to 9 miles a week or so on, depending if you're going to start running a half marathon especially, then you're going to need even more than that. You really want to spend a little bit more on shoes. There's some really good ones out there. There's some good websites out there that will help you fit the shoe that's to the way you walk, to how you move and how your foot is shaped. Also, there are some stores out there they'll get you actually on a treadmill, and they'll get you and they can kind of pick out a good shoe based on how you move, how you run, what your foot shape is. But shoes are the most important thing you're going to have when you go into training.
Right. And even if you don't feel like you have the time or you want to be involved in going to a location to get your foot analyzed or whatever, at least if you're making sure that you have name brands that are reliable, that they're going to last for what you need them for, then
right.
At least you're starting off in the right direction.
And we're not saying if you're running out there going to go do your first 5K, you need to buy $300 shoes. No, you can go find a good pair of $50 to $70 shoes that'll be fine for you to start off with. And if you decide to progress further into a 10K or a half marathon, then you might think about going into more of the $100 plus shoes. And again, it all depends on what you're looking for. If you're maybe a little bigger person, like I've always been most of my life, if you have some problems with your ankles, your knees, some aches and pains, maybe you want a shoe that's more cushioned. However, if you're a little more experienced, you're going for more speed, then you want a shoe that's a little lighter. So it just depends on what you're looking for out there. So shoes are very important. The second thing you're going to want to need is clothing that kind of wicks away moisture. There's a common running term out there that says cotton is rotten. Now, I'm not going to say you can't wear cotton out there, but if you get out there and you get sweating and you have cotton on, that stuff acts like a sponge. I mean, it just will start weighing you down. It's heavy. It doesn't get the moisture off your body. It'll actually put it back on. Moisture wicking clothes, dry fit, whatever. A lot of that stuff will really help you out, and especially during these summer months when it's a little warmer.
Right. And I know I had heard that information before and didn't, I guess, take it quite seriously enough. I was very determined to go as Edna Mode, and I purchased the cutest little outfit that and got a wig and the glasses.
This was for last year's Disneyland 5K,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
You look great in that outfit, by the way.
Thanks, but I did learn from it that Disney bounding doesn't mean you have to be cosplay, and so that was something that I did learn. Although I had the right clothing underneath with my shorts, etc., it was material that didn't breathe, and we did have some humidity factors and temperatures that were exceeding normal records in Southern Cal. And I did the race okay, but it was one of the more uncomfortable ones. And again, you're at a Disney park. You want to really be focusing on your run and what's going on around there, and having something that is more comfortable is a better way to go.
Right. Well, I'm going to talk more about costuming when I get to my tip segment near the end of the show. Oh, you too. Great. So we're basically going to just glom on each other for our tips. We go into these shows. We don't really discuss because we want it to be all fresh when we come on the air. So sometimes I've been waiting for this to happen. Sometime we were going to kind of have the same tip or some story. We're going to have the same story or something was going to happen.
Right. I think we might have some similar stories. My tip at the end will be a little different from running, but I will be talking a little bit more about some ideas for what to wear.
Anyway, even going more on what you were talking about there, and the equipment or the gear that you're going to wear, dress appropriately for what the weather is. Check it out. If you're running in the mornings and it's chilly, of course, you'll like to have a running coat. If it's really chilly as you're getting more towards the fall and winter, maybe you live in a chilly climate, maybe some running gloves, some long pants, or some racing tights. Those are always great, but just kind of keep an eye out on what the weather is like. If it's warmer like we are in the summer, if you're running in the afternoons, of course you'll want to get some good shorts. Like I said, some good moisture wicking shirt. That's something lightweight. Just so you're appropriate for what the weather might be.
Right.
I mean, this is tough enough. Don't make it tougher on yourself by wearing the wrong equipment when you go out there.
Right. And just being comfortable can keep you going.
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely. So speaking of that, motivation is the next subject that I want to talk about here on this race. Now, motivation is a key part to this. Most of us, let's face it, running is not always fun. It can be fun at times, but I like to call it fun torture because you can have fun, but you're also, there's never been even just a 1 mile run that I've gone on where I haven't spent a half a mile where I've thought I could run forever and a half a mile where I thought I'm going to die. I'm not going to make it. That's kind of the way my runs go. And if it's a longer run, usually that's multiple times throughout it. So, motivation is a tough part to go through. And my first part of motivation that I needed to get through was to eliminate as many excuses as possible. Because it's easy for us, when it's a tough thing to do, to like, okay, well, my gear's not ready. I just stayed up a little too late last night. You can come up with all sorts of excuses, and as they build up, it's easy to not follow through with your runs. And you really want to train for these races because when you get to that race day, these Disney races are really fun, and you want to be ready for that fun, even if it takes work to get there. So one of the key things that I find out to do is just get my running gear ready. Whether I run in the mornings, so I get my running gear ready the night before. If you like to run in the afternoons after work or after the kids get out of school or whatever, get that gear ready in the morning before you head out. That way when you come home, it's there for you. It just cuts one more excuse that you have is I don't need to hunt down all my different parts to get ready to go out. And that kind of helps my first step working for me to getting out there and actually making these things happen.
So I have a top 3 for motivation.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah. So the first thing that I found helpful for motivating me in this whole process is, first of all, signing up for a local race. And again, this is somebody who hasn't done any kind of races before. Just finding a simple local community race. You feel good because your money is going to a charity usually, and then but it also gives you something motivating you to do this preparation and training. And the second thing is find a couple of places where you enjoy running for your training time. So, like you might want an area that has for shorter runs, like for me, I use just the area around our home that, I can start something, and if I'm not going to go for a long time, can get back home pretty quickly and easily. And then having something else that's a little bit a longer distance so that you can, have that experience down the road to push yourself. So for like us, we have a lake nearby that's about 4.5 miles. It's got some nice curves and stuff. It's not just a complete circle.
Couple little light hills in there, so you can get that on your belt too.
Yeah. So having some places that as you're training that you can enjoy can really help motivate you. And then the other thing is coming up with some inspirational and encouraging kind of things, such as, and this is one that I had heard about from somebody, is setting up an inspirational board. And I actually set one up on Pinterest, which I can share with you all. And I set it up in advance of running the half marathon. And what I did was I had that set up, but then the night before the actual race is when I actually reflected on those inspirational thoughts that were that I had already collected. So it was a nice refresher, and the night before it kind of got me pumped up again. And I do want to share one of my favorite ones. It says, "I run because I can." Yeah. Because those who can't would want me to.
Yes,
and so
that's nice.
Something,
nice.
And once you have those a little bit more in your mind as you're actually doing a run, you can think of those as well. And then also setting up rewards for yourself. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be something that's expensive or elaborate, but have some little, whether it be treats, whether you're going to, buy some, bling for your wings, if you're going to be Tinkerbell, for example. But, let yourself know what the reward is and what you need to do to get that reward, and that can also help keep you motivated.
And that's what I was about to talk about, is I have something, I like to give myself rewards, and they could be as simple as, look, I'm going to finish this run, and tomorrow I get the day off. I don't have to run tomorrow. Right. It's very simple. I can do on my longer runs. I can, look, this is my longer run. Usually I do it on a Saturday. My longer runs, that means I'm not going to run again till Tuesday. So that gives me 2 days off. I'm going to run this longer run and I'll have 2 days. It's simple things like that. Or it could be something as simple as, I'm not saying that you should go out there and hit the all-you-can-eat buffet, but, you can reward yourself, look, I can have a cookie tonight, or I can end up a donut or whatever. I'm not saying you should go crazy with it, but anything that can help motivate you is good. I motivate myself during runs, as a matter of fact. Like I try and talk about, depending on the length of the run, let's say I'm just doing 3 miles, okay? I'm say just, for some of you that will not be easy, and no run is easy. Let's face it, not even a mile is an easy run. I told you earlier about how every half mile I'm either going to run forever or I'm going to die. If you just go out there and say, look, I'm already a mile in, I'm already a third of the way through, or, when you get to past the halfway point, then you start counting down. I'm already, halfway through this thing. I only have, and you probably will know kind of what your pacing is, I'll only have 11 minutes to go or whatever, until I'm done with this thing. Little even rewards like that as you're running can kind of help motivate you to get through it, because sometimes it can seem like, oh, this is so long. If you think about everything that's ahead of you, rather than thinking, instead, you should think about what's behind you. Sometimes that will help getting you through it. Well, at least it works for me that way.
Right. Same thing here.
Other things to do when you're out there running. We love to listen to music when we're running. We love listening to music. We love, and you can find what works for you. Everybody has something different, a good set of headphones and music. Maybe you want to go running with a friend and have a conversation when you're out there. Maybe it's if you like to listen to a good audio book, that's good. Anything to keep your mind off of it. We like to listen to, and let's mark it. We are in the 24th minute of the 7th show. We listen to Hamilton a lot when we're out there running. And I can't believe it took us until this point to mention Hamilton, because one thing you'll know about us is that we are huge Hamilton fans. We are huge Disney fans, but we also love the Broadway musical Hamilton. And we got partially to love that is because it's been very inspirational music for us when we run, because not only is it some great music with some great pacing, it's also kind of an audio book in itself. While you're running, you're kind of listening to a story as you go along. So
right, exactly, and it has a lot of upbeat parts to it, so it can be helpful at keeping you motivated. And let's face it, we also have our Disney tracks.
No, of course.
But I agree with you. Hamilton is pretty much the go-to most of the time.
Well, we do. For my longer runs, my mix is very eclectic. I have everything from Disney songs to pop songs to hard rock songs to rap. It kind of goes all over the map out there, but just stuff that I find gets me along, gets my pacing the way I want it to be. And if you're looking for songs out there that kind of want to find your pace, there's a great website out there. It's called Jog FM. And if you're looking, depending on what your pace you're looking to run at, whether you're looking to run at a 12-minute per mile pace, or whether you're looking to run at a 9-minute mile pace, or whatever, you can type in what you're looking for, and they'll find songs that kind of a beats per minute that go with the pace you're looking for, and you can scroll through them and find what kind of songs you like. You might be surprised at this song that you hadn't thought of. Might be one of those songs that's great for you. And another place you can find some great music is runDisney will release themed playlists going into a lot of these races on Spotify, and those are songs that kind of, all these races have something, whether it be like last year, you talked about The Incredibles going into the Disneyland 5K. It was Monsters, Inc. going into the Disneyland 10K, which I ran last year. But, whether it be the Avengers, they've been in the past, Star Wars, whatever it might be, the Princess Half Marathon, they have released these theme playlists that kind of go along with those races, and those are kind of fun too.
Right, exactly. And sometimes when you're training, what may work for you one day might not be what's inspirational to you on another day.
Yeah.
So having some variations in your playlists available is also a very helpful motivator.
I'm always adding songs and ejecting songs depending on how they, sometimes I've listened to them too many times. Sometimes I've changed my pace of how I run, whatever. You can adapt it as you move along. But anyway, those are what I think a lot of good things that can help motivate you. Tell us what motivates you. If you want to reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, through our email address, let us know what motivates you when you go out to do your runDisney races. Another key thing before you get started, make sure you warm up. Go out there. Don't just go out cold and start running, especially if you haven't been really doing this before. Whether it be stretching, whether it be walking, maybe a little light running before you do more of a speedy run. Just make sure your body is ready to go. And that's especially important when you get to the colder months as we're getting prepared for some of these races.
Right. Because the last thing you want to do is experience, a cramp or, any other type of injury because you haven't done the warm up sufficiently.
Absolutely. So that gets us through getting started. Now let's get into what we do for our actual training process. And as I said before, please do train for these races, even if you can't do it all the time. We understand things get in the way, family, jobs, vacations, although running on vacation is actually kind of a fun thing to do. You get to check out new areas. We, of course, go to Walt Disney World, and we stay at the cabins at the Fort Wilderness, yeah. The cabins at Fort Wilderness, and running through that area with all the trees and everything is really a great area to run through. But wherever you go, you're running through a different city. It's kind of cool to kind of get, even if it's just for a mile, kind of get out there and do it. It's kind of fun. But we know things get in the way. You get sick, whatever. But try and work your way around it as much as possible, because when you get to this race, you're going to spend a lot of money on this race. These races aren't cheap, these runDisney races, but they are fun, and you want to be able to have fun. If you're suffering because you didn't train properly for the race, you probably won't quite have as much fun. So here's what works for, at least for me, and you, Michelle, you can talk about what works for you. We regularly run only 3 days a week. Some people think you need to run almost every day to get trained up for these races. That's not what works for us, and that's actually what runDisney mostly suggests. They do suggest if you're going to do some of the challenges where you're running back-to-back days, running the 10K, running the half marathon, that there may be one day where you're going to want to run back-to-back races or back-to-back training runs as you get closer to this. But we're not doing the challenges mostly. So we do 3 days a week. I do Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I believe you usually do Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, like you ran this morning.
Exactly.
And how I approach it personally as an intermediate runner is I will go out. Since I'm an intermediate, I can run the whole thing now. I'll run for 30 minutes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which is usually about 3 miles for me. And I'll focus more on speed. And then on the weekdays, on the weekends, I go for my longer runs. One weekend, odd weeks, if I'm starting the training regimen, like I just signed up for, unfortunately, it's not a runDisney race, but it's a half marathon up in the LA area with my cousins I'm going to be running. I will run 5 miles because I've got some experience. Now, if you're starting out, you're not going to run 5 miles your first long weekend, or especially if you're running a 5K, you have no reason to run 5 miles. I'll run 5 miles, and then the next week I'll run a longer distance, whether it be 8, 9, 10, and gradually increase that. And that one will be for endurance. I'll go at a much slower pace on those races. Now, you as a beginner, how do you approach it, Michelle?
Right. I still enjoy whether it be a 5K or 10K. Versus the half marathon, although I love the half marathon too. And I'm not trying to be an Olympic champion at any of these things.
Neither of us are.
So I do use a lot of the tips that, you can get from the Run Disney site, and part of that is building up your endurance if you're a lightweight like what I am, and that's where you're doing a pattern of doing some running mixed in with some walking, and that, you just continually decrease the amount of time you're walking and increase the running capacity. And so similar to what you do, I do the 3 days a week. I try to do 30 minutes also during the weekdays, although I'm not consistent with that. And one of the things that you shared with me early on, I would find that there was something a day that I just may not really have felt well enough to do it, or just, didn't feel motivated at all, and what you shared with me is, hey, even if you just go out there for 10 to 15 minutes, and then it doesn't seem so big. It doesn't seem like, okay, maybe I slept in a little bit and I don't have 30 minutes and I don't want to feel bad like I didn't do it at all. So knowing that I could allow myself just a short run of 10 to 15 minutes just to get me out there, just to keep, things going, really made a big difference. Now, obviously I don't want to do that all the time, but it was a nice way to again, allow myself, if I didn't have that ability to do the whole 30 minutes on the weekdays, to be able to, do something.
Better to get out there for a short time than to not do it at all. Because if you miss one day, okay, that can happen. You miss 2 days, then it starts to stretch into 3 days. And then you're kind of really, especially when you start running and get out there and get to these activities, you'll notice if you take a week or more off, sometimes it almost feels like you're starting from ground zero again. I'm not trying to discourage you out there. I'm just trying to encourage you to get out there more often. Now, like I said, life gets in the way, family issues, you get sick, whatever, it's going to happen. But the more you can get out there every once in a while, even if it is just for 10 minutes, just a mile, it's going to help you loads. And there's no runner in the world that gets up every day and feels perfect for a run. There's just some days, for whatever reason, you didn't eat as well as you needed to the day before. Maybe you like you said, you didn't sleep enough, whether you didn't drink enough water, whatever, for whatever reason, there are going to be days where you're just not feeling as good as you felt on other days when you run. And kind of, if you can just fight through that somewhat, maybe you slow down your pace, whatever you need to do, if you can kind of battle through that, one, you'll feel rewarded when I got through it when you're done, and two, it'll help you for other runs in the future.
Right. And similarly with the pattern of walk run, like I told you, I mean, on days, whether it be very, very hot, I mean, last weekend here was just crazy. And, you need to, at that point, keep in mind that you're probably not going to be running as fast or as much. And, just allowing yourself, again, pushing through some of it, so sometimes at the beginning when I'm feeling like that, at the beginning of my, longer runs, like a 5-mile run or whatever, I might at first feel like, man, I'm really a wimp today. I'm doing more walking than I had expected to be doing. I'm not keeping up with what I've been, on track with before, and then realize that, after about a mile in or something like that, then I'm back onto my stride. So don't ever let it get discouraged. And even if you don't get into your stride, just being out there, and fighting through some of that, discomfort, can go a long way.
And you feel better about it when you're done. That's why
Absolutely.
People talk about the runner's high. I've never once felt the runner's high when I'm actually been running. But the high comes to me for after I finish. It's like, I did that. I ran those 3 miles. I had a great pace. I've run longer than I ever have, or I've run more than I've walked for the first time ever. Whatever it is, depending on what state you are in. Those are what are the rewards for all of this, as well as, of course, the race at the end, which is the finish line, which is literally the finish line at the end of this all. That is the best thing going for you. But yeah, when you're a beginner, start out. If you're just coming from the couch, you have never run at all, don't go out there and expect you're going to run even a mile just right off the bat. Go out there and walk run a little bit, walk a little bit more, run a little bit, whether it be like walk for a minute, run for 30 seconds, walk for a minute, run for 30 seconds, whatever. Find out what works for you. And then gradually, as you do it more, you can start moving it to where you walk for 30 seconds, run for a minute, walk for 30 seconds, run for a minute. And then eventually you might be able to get it to the point where you can run most of it, if not all of it.
Right. And, so the counting in your head can really be helpful if you're feeling a little bit like sluggish, because, when if you're running, let's say for 30 seconds and you get, you're counting, you only have a few more seconds, you can make it. Another tip that you could try to use too is looking at something that's outside that you can say, okay, I'm going to run until I reach that tree, or that cactus plant or something like that. I mean, something that is also a way that you don't necessarily feel like you have to be counting all the time in your head.
That's a great thing. I should have mentioned this in equipment as well. This one thing you might want to do when you're listening to music or whatever, get one of the apps that are out there that will help you run. Like we like Runkeeper. That's the app that we like, but there's other great ones, especially if you're just starting out. Couch to 5K is a great one to help you get going, moving. There's other ones like Map My Run. And there's several running apps out there that will help you keep your pace. It'll tell you your distance, and they're semi-accurate. They're not completely accurate. If you get more advanced, and this is as you get more to being towards an intermediate runner, whether you're running a 10K or a half marathon, then you might go for like a GPS type watch that actually attaches to a satellite, and that will tell you a more exact distance that you're going and pacing and everything else. But it's kind of those things. And they also will, when you know what your pace is, it'll show you how you're progressing, if you're getting faster, if you're running more, if you're running longer, whatever the case may be. So those things will help you.
Exactly.
As far as pacing, like I said before, if you're just getting started, walk more. It's okay to walk. I walked on my half marathon. I had a pretty good pace on my half marathon. I was hot, so it wasn't maybe quite exactly what I wanted, but it's still a pretty good pace. But I walked maybe a mile of the 13 miles out there. It's okay to walk during these things and still say you ran it. As long as you've done some running within it, it's okay to say you've run these races. But pacing, when you're getting on your runs, start slowly. This is what I'll suggest. Always start slowly. If you go really fast at the beginning of your race or your run or wherever you're going to do, and then you start running out of energy midway through or near the end, you're either not going to run the distance you want, you're going to injure yourself, or you're just going to be absolutely exhausted at the end of it. It's always better to start slowly, and then if you're feeling good as you move on, you can kind of increase your pace slowly as you go along.
Yeah, and that's great information, because when I first started, I just thought, all right, I have my most energy when I'm just starting, so let me just really, bolt out there and, while I'm still energetic, get as far as I could. And you're right, that's what I experienced. I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
So
and it's especially true if you're going for endurance. If you're going for one of your longer runs where you're trying to stretch things out a little bit farther, definitely start more slowly. It'll pay off in the long run. One thing you should try and do when you're running is keep your breath about you. So like if you find yourself, and everybody thinks you run, you're going to have to breathe hard. You don't ever want to have to do that.
Right.
If you get to that point and you're not just running like the last stretch of your run or your race or whatever, then you're going to wear yourself out. That's what I find wears me out quicker than anything. It's not necessarily aches or pains or anything else. It's fatigue. And when you find yourself out of breath, it's what fatigues your body when you're not getting oxygen to your muscles. So try and keep your pace. I mean, if you find yourself getting out of breath, you should be able to, what they'll tell you, and I don't personally believe this because I don't like to talk to anybody when I run, but they tell you should be able to hold on conversation while you're running, and that's how your pace should be. I just try and keep my breath kind of steady. If you find yourself where your breath is picking up some, you're kind of going heavy, you want to either slow down your pace or maybe just slow down completely and walk for a little bit until you catch your breath again. Believe me, it'll save you in the long run.
Right, absolutely. Same experiences that I've had there, and that's where, again, if you're want to make this just like your plans are to just do 5Ks. I shouldn't say just do, because I love the 5Ks.
5Ks are great.
Are so much fun.
It's not just.
Right.
It's a great race.
It's a great race. And again, even with some community races there is, having the ability just to have that walk in your back of the mind that you can do some walking and still it's a legitimate experience.
Absolutely. If you're now when you're looking at what you're going to pace yourself at for your runs, think of what your goal is. Have a goal to go out there when your runs. Is it going to be to go for endurance? Is it going to be to go for speed? Is it going to be to try and stretch out and run more than you walk? Whatever the case may be. When you're talking about pacing, you should know what you're going out there for. If you're going to go for a shorter run, your pace should be a little bit faster than if you say you're going to go and try and stretch it out to a longer run, whether it be going to 3 miles for the first time ever, or whether it's going to 5 or 10 or whatever. Your shorter run should be a little faster than your longer run. And again, it goes back with, keeping your pacing the right way for it, starting off more slowly. Believe me, I never run a long run. If I'm going to go run 5 miles, I never run it at the pace I'm going to run 2 miles. I never run it. It's going to be much slower by a minute or sometimes more per mile, depending on what the distance is we're talking about here. So keep that in mind when you go out there. If you're getting set to go run 5 miles for the first time and you go out there the way you run 3 miles, well, you're probably going to be fatigued somewhere around the 3.5, 4 mile part. You should, at least for the first times you're running these distances, slow it down by 30 seconds to a minute per mile at least.
Right, and that's where the apps come in handy, and also, because you are training with different goals in mind. When you go out, the apps do give you usually trophies or badges for accomplishing. They
have little challenges you can meet.
Right.
It's just kind of fun.
Exactly.
But that's the key. And listen to your body when you're out there. Don't overdo it. If you find your body is hurting, there's usually a reason for it. And if it's carrying over on your days off, more than just general soreness, especially when you're first starting activity, you're going to hit general soreness. But if you find some joint pain or, some muscles that really hurt for extended periods of time, listen to them and lay off of them a little bit. Especially for those of you who are just getting started, you want to be very careful with those things, because if you try and push it too much, now we've talked about pushing it through some adversity, but when you really have an injury of some sort, if you try and push it too quickly, then you just elongate it. It becomes tougher to come back from, and then you got to start, as we talked about earlier, start all over again.
Right. Think of it like if you have, any other kind of illness, and you push yourself through that illness, and you end up making your recovery take that much longer. So.
And that's true of also if you get sick, especially if you get something that moves into your lungs or whatever. Don't try and push it out to get out there and be active right away. Even if you're kind of close to race time, you need to kind of let that stuff clear up so it doesn't, you don't relapse and get sicker again, or, just end up injuring yourself another way. It's another thing is if you favor things, if you're injured, you start favoring other parts of your body, you can injure that part of your body. And it's just one of those things. You just got to kind of decide. And the same thing if you're on a run, maybe you plan to go 3 miles that day, but you find in mile 1 that something is hurting. Okay, maybe you don't get to do that 3 miles, but it'll save you in the long run. Maybe you can run 3 miles the next time out because you can kind of let that heal up.
Exactly.
So in between runs, on off days, one thing that I do is I try and stay off of really working any of my lower body to an extreme at all. If you want to go out and still be active and work out, you can do some things that kind of work with your upper body or whatever. But if you're going to planning for doing these runs, especially some of these longer runs, kind of give your lower body, especially your calves and your quads and your hamstrings, some time off during those times.
Right.
And another thing you want to do on your days off, carbs. I know it sounds weird to think that you need carbs, but if you're going to be doing especially longer runs, you're going to need to prepare for them with a few carbs here and there. Now, I'm not saying you should go out there and get a bunch of fettuccine Alfredo or something really heavy and fatty. It's good, but what you should probably do is every once in a while, and it doesn't have to be all the time, but especially before some of your longer runs, and definitely before race day, get out there, get some light pasta, whether it be just some light pasta with some vegetables, maybe a little olive oil, garlic, some grilled chicken, some grilled shrimp, whatever in there, something simple, a little Parmesan over the top. It's really good, and it'll help give you some energy for your run days.
Right, yeah, and also to have something with you when you're running, especially a long run that you could, have as well.
Absolutely. When you're on your runs, that's another thing. If you're going for your longer runs, depending on whatever distance that is, it's probably good to either fuel before, during, and sometimes multiple times during, because your body will use up those things and you'll need them as you move along. If you've run that day and you're looking to recover from those runs, proteins are very important. So lean proteins like chicken breast, pork tenderloin, even it doesn't have to necessarily be always super lean. You can have a steak or whatever. But protein, if you're a vegetarian, quinoa, tofu, very important stuff, beans and rice, things like that. But you're going to need protein to kind of recover, to help your muscles recover in between days. And always, as always, and I'll say this, whether you're running or not, hydrate. Especially as you're training for these runs, hydration is a big thing. You need to hydrate before, you're going to need to hydrate during, and you need to hydrate after, and that includes your days in between.
Oh, yeah, that is exceptional advice, and that's one of the things that I have to be myself most involved in remembering, because I'm not as good at it as you are, but it really does make a big difference. And like you said, for the recovery part, if you're not well hydrated, you are just you're on the couch then after that. That's Absolutely. How I you need your water. You'll be, especially on these days like right now, if you're out there running now for most of the country where it's humid and hot and you're perspiring a ton of liquids. You really need water's great. Water is the best, but sometimes some of the sports drinks out there are important to get some of the the phosphates and such back in you. It's really good. Bananas are great to kind of help store that liquid, help you from cramping up and everything. So, but hydrate if you can. Other things that are great for recovery. Ice is great if you start getting some aches and pains. Ice, even just a bag of frozen peas taped around your knee can do wonders for you. So ice is great. They have these great, come out in the last several years, is kinetic tape. Is great. If you've never seen kinetic tape, you'll see them if you go to some of the parks on race days, or you'll see a lot of people walk around the park with all this tape on their knees, or actually you'll see it like on the Olympics and some of these athletic events, a lot of people with these tapes on their shoulders, on their knees or whatever. That's kinetic tape. And there are people out there that can do it for you. They're trained, they know how to do it, but also there's great tutorials online to show you how to apply this for whatever your ache and pain might be. And it really helps kind of support that as you're working through whatever might be bothering you. So really would suggest you looking into that if you're starting to get some aches and pains as you're trying to progress your runs. So right.
That's it. That's what I have. Did you have anything else?
Well, no, the only other thing that I wanted to share about, and it kind of goes under motivation too, is when I run, I really look at it as my time. There's so many other responsibilities we have, whether it be kids or work or things at home. And so when I go out to run, especially my longer runs, I really just use that as my time to be listening to music, trying to really focus on fun thoughts, and realizing at that moment that I'm doing it, I have no other responsibilities. And, it really is kind of a respite for the soul. And I know that even at times when I've really, felt low about something, that having that alone time to really just, be kind to myself and then to feel good about it afterwards is really something that helps me for the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. I was out running yesterday, and most of the topics I came up with today, I was thinking about as I was out running. That's why my runs since we started doing this podcast, a lot of the planning for it and coming up with topics is what I've been handling on my runs. I think about a lot of these things, and I got to take a note of this when I get back. Sometimes I forget to take a note of it, and I forget about it till later. But a lot of this comes out there. But also, it's great. Like it's a great time, like if you're planning a vacation, to be thinking about your plans for a vacation or whatever it might be, what you're going to have for dinner that night. Plan out your menu for whatever. There's lots of stuff to think about out there as you're going through it, and it really is a great time just to be for you.
Right. And you can think about what you might want to wear on a race.
That's right.
How you can do Disney bounding on a race format.
Absolutely.
So,
and bottom line, just go out there and have fun. I know it's torture. Running is never easy. Getting out there and getting athletic is never easy, but look at it in a fun way, and especially when you get to that finish line, like I was talking about a little earlier, when you actually get to that race and the fun that's going to happen out there as you're running through these parks at the Walt Disney World Resort. Hopefully, eventually they come back to the Disneyland Resort here within the next couple of years. But as you're getting out there, that's the goal, and you want to have fun with it. So get out there, train, have fun. Again, we are not doctors. We are not certified trainers. This is just what we do. This is what works for us. Hopefully, a little piece of this, what we talked about, will help you somewhere along the line.
Right. And again, if anybody has any additional tips that you want to share with us or that we can share with everybody, or if you have some questions, if we don't know the answers of what, our experience have been, hopefully we'll be able to kind of route you in the right direction to get some of your answers.
And we've probably glossed, just like last week, as Robert wrote us earlier, we probably glossed over a few things here, or maybe something that you had some questions about. If you want to contact us and ask us about anything we've talked about here, or anytime in any of the podcasts, you can reach us on Twitter at Hyperion Podcast, on Facebook and Instagram at Hyperion Adventures Podcast, and you can email us at HyperionAdventuresPodcast@gmail.com. And now, we're going to break the record for the longest podcast we've ever had. We are way into it, but we have to get to our stories of the week. We just cannot. There's all these Disney stories. We need to get to at least a couple of them, or I would feel like we neglected our audience. So let's get to the stories of the week. Here we go. Let's start off with the Walt Disney World Resort has announced an exciting way to kick off the fall. Maybe just extend your summer a little bit. They've released the Fall into Magic package for dates right after Labor Day. Now, it's a very interesting package. It's trying to kind of entice people as the summer ends to kind of get out there and get to these parks. What this package includes is guests can book a 4-day, 5-night package from September 3rd to September 8th at select Disney Resort hotels. With this limited time offer, this is what they wrote. So this is not how I speak. You'll delight in an itinerary full of magical must-dos and exclusive experiences just for guests on this package. You'll also enjoy a 5-night stay at a select Disney Moderate, Deluxe, or Disney Villa Resort Hotel and a 4-day Magic Your Way theme park tickets with park hopper options. Now, the cool thing about this is it's not just a hotel and tickets package. There are exclusive events that are tied to it for each night that you're at the park. You start off on the 4th of September with a welcome to fall dinner at Epcot, inspired by the International Food and Wine Festival. On the 5th, you have a nighttime Kilimanjaro Safaris tour at Disney's Animal Kingdom, followed by an exclusive showing of Rivers of Light after closing. On the 6th, there have 2 hours of exclusive nighttime access to Toy Story Land at Disney's Hollywood Studios. And on the 7th, you get tickets to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party at the Magic Kingdom. So kind of a cool package, a lot of fun stuff that people really want to do out there. And it might be a fun way to approach it if you're willing to extend your summer or start your fall that week after Labor Day.
Right. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
You can now book now through August 18th. Prices may vary depending on what, of course, resort, obviously, what kind of room you're looking for resort. But they are limited. There are only so many packages. So you might want to get out there if you're thinking about doing this and check into it as soon as possible. But that sounds like a lot of fun. Secondly, Disneyland Paris. We talked about Disneyland Paris and the race earlier. Well, Disneyland Paris is about to host its second, and I'm going to mess this up. You'd be much better reading it. Matter of fact, I'm going to let you read this because you speak French.
Le Rendezvous Gourmand Food Festival.
There we go. Thank you. Yes, yeah. She actually speaks some French. I do not. I just kind of go, The park will be celebrating European food culture by hosting the festival in Walt Disney Studios Park from July 27th through September 30th of this year. So it's coming up really quickly here. For the first time, Italy, Spain, Belgium will be represented in the 6 chalets featuring food, drink, and decor of each region. Each chalet will be located in Rue de Paris. Did I get that okay?
Yeah.
Near Place de Remy. Mm-hmm. The Ratatouille attraction and the Bistro de Remy. So I know I botched those, but
no.
Good
job.
You're fine. You're fine. Whatever, you American. So that looks like a lot of fun. We like all the different festivals out at Walt Disney World Resort. When they do their various things at Epcot, here at the Disneyland Resort, at Disney's California Adventure, we get to try different foods. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of fun. A couple other things that happened this week. Disney movies well, they changed some things coming up on the schedule-wise. And you may have heard this, but Indiana Jones 5 has been pushed back by a year. It's now going to be on July 9th, 2021 that's coming out. So a little sad, but I'd rather have them push it back a year and try and get it right. Because I know we both love the Indiana Jones series of movies. Even the fourth one wasn't exactly that great. So I want to see them get 5 right. Other notices from the Disney movie changes. Mary Poppins Returns has been moved up by a week.
Yes.
It was going to be on Christmas. Now it's going to be released on December 19th. So that's exciting. We're looking forward to seeing that. That's going to be fun.
Because I think there's somebody in there that you're...
Yeah, that goes back to our Hamilton thing that we talked about earlier. I'm so glad that he is part of the Disney... I'm talking about Lin-Manuel Miranda. Everybody knows I have a guy crush on Lin-Manuel Miranda. And I'm so excited that he's part of the Disney family now, between helping write the music for Moana and this, and now he's also working on the music for the live-action Little Mermaid when that comes out here in the next few years. So, one more thing is that, and it's not really that important, but Wreck-It Ralph 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet, is now been renamed to It's Just Wreck-It Ralph. Or excuse me, it's just to Ralph Breaks the Internet. They've kind of taken the Wreck-It Ralph 2 out of it. So a couple other movie releases out there. I can't get to them all here because we're running late, but just so you know that. I can't get away without talking about Star Wars a little bit, because we like to talk about Star Wars.
Yeah.
Billy D. Williams is returning as Lando Calrissian in Star Wars Episode 9. That's exciting news. There were some rumors that he might be in The Last Jedi, but that didn't come to fruition. So it's good to hear now that it's looking like we will see that cad, whatever you want to call him. Lando Calrissian, will be fun to see him back in the Star Wars movies. He's been doing a lot of stuff, kind of not on the movies, but he's been doing stuff. We've seen him making appearances in Rebels. He played Lando in that. He voiced that, and doing a couple other things. But he has not actually been Lando since 1983's Return of the Jedi. So,
wow, that's exciting.
Yeah. That's it. I can't. We're so long here. I'm not going to go to any more stories. There's lots of stories out there. We never get to them all. Please, if there's a story that you want to share with us or you want to discuss with us, as I gave you before, and I'll give you the contact again, but please write to us or contact us in some way. We'd love to talk to you about these stories. So since we're running so long here, we just need to get to our tips. And since we've talked about it earlier, maybe we can kind of sync up our tip here as we go along. So let's get to our tips as we close out every show. Michelle with her tip of the week.
Okay. Recently we talked about booking some of the Halloween events at both Disneyland and Walt Disney World. Well, now, last week, the Walt Disney World Christmas events are starting to be available now online. They have their very Merry Christmas party in the Magic Kingdom, which is a wonderful nighttime experience. If you haven't done that, it is really great, and so that's something that we would recommend. And also the candlelight processional dining packages at Epcot. You can do the candlelight processional without having a dining package. It is free with your Epcot admission, but you would have to end up lining up and being in actually like a standby line. So the dining packages are really a favorable way to do that experience.
Especially if you're going to probably eat out at the parks anyways. Why not take advantage of that?
Right. So you can do it. They do have now a breakfast that you can also book as a dining package, as well as the lunches or dinners for that day. And, as with most of the Disney experiences where you do a dining package, you get your tickets associated with going to the restaurant. We're really excited with the candlelight procession to see some of our favorite guest narrators returning, like Neil Patrick Harris, Jodie Benson, Whoopi, Edward James Olmos. So that's...
You saw Jodie Benson last year, right?
I saw Jodie Benson last year. I've seen the other ones that I just mentioned over the years, as well as some others. And so those are the ones that have been confirmed so far. There's some other dates that they're still, and some other guest narrators there. I didn't go through the whole list.
Whoopi Goldberg is one of them. There's a lot of great names. They always have great people hosting these.
Exactly. And again, if you haven't done the candlelight processional, it is just a really great holiday experience. Talk about immersion into a holiday experience, and it's something, we like to take people who have never been and kind of see it through their, new eyes on it. But it can be a really great family tradition to go to.
It really gets you into the Christmas season.
It really does. And they've already announced one of their New Year's Eve celebration, which will be the Pixar Party at the Contemporary Resort. And that's at $190 per person. It's food, it's drinks. It's a great way to ring in the new year.
Absolutely. That's great. Yeah.
So I encourage you to go online.
Yeah. And we look forward to the holidays every year out there. Both, the Disneyland Resort and the Walt Disney World Resort, they just deck it out, and it really gets you into the spirit.
It is amazing.
Even if you're showing up there in November, it really can be fun. It kind of gets you really pumped for the holidays.
And as we've talked about in the past about hotel hopping, that's a great time of year to do hotel hopping. So each of the decor is very different and very themed towards that resort theme. Many of them have gingerbread houses that are in the theme of that resort. Some aren't necessarily houses, but they are gingerbread statues.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Christmas time or holiday time at Walt Disney World and Disneyland is pretty phenomenal. A sensory experience for sure.
Absolutely. You can even do things out there where you're sending the kids on tasks to find every Christmas tree at the Walt Disney World Resort, every other big one, the main Christmas trees. They have hundreds of actual Christmas trees. You're not going to find every Christmas tree out there, but if you can find the main ones out there, all the different resorts and the parks, that's kind of a fun way to kind of maybe set the kids going, like you said, a scavenger hunt as they go along. Okay, let's get to my tip real quickly because, again, we're actually pushing an hour now. My tip, I'm going to go back to the whole Run Disney thing and getting ready for your race. And I'm going to talk about costumes now. One thing you'll know about whether you've done a race or whether you haven't, you've probably seen the pictures online. People like to get out there and dress themselves up to run in these Run Disney races. But I will tell you something. If you're going to do this, be prepared for it. Don't just go out there and think, I'm going to go wear a full Chewbacca costume out and to run this half marathon in 80-degree weather with 99% humidity. That's probably not the way you want to go. Or you don't want to go out there. I don't know if I'll remember what the Walt Disney World Marathon temperatures were for last year. They were, I believe, down in the upper 30s, low 40s, and maybe even colder than that. You don't want to go out there with the Princess Leia gold bikini when it's, 38 degrees and freezing mist out there. So you want to pay attention to the weather as you're preparing your costumes for these, whether it's just Disney bounding or whether you're actually going for a full-blown costume to go out to these things. Think about what the race length you're going to run is. Is it a 5K? You can probably go, if you're used to running longer races, you can probably go a little heavier on your costume. If you're running a 5K, are you running a 10K? Are you running a half marathon? You want to adapt to those. You want to know what the weather is going in. If you're planning these things well out in advance, like you may be planning your costume now for the Walt Disney World half marathon, since you're registering this week. Look at what the weather has been in the past races at those dates, and that can kind of give you an idea of what you might want to look for. It doesn't mean that the weather will be that, but at least it gives you an idea so you can kind of be prepared going in. What I'll tell you is when you do these costumes, be prepared for any type of weather. Have them be layered. So you can either add if you need to or subtract if you need to and still have effectively what you want it to be. Because if it's colder than expected, you'll want to add in, maybe a sweatshirt underneath it or some sort of hoodie, or you'll want to have some sort of long pants, whether it be running tights or some sort of jogging pants or whatever. If it's hotter, then you're going to want to strip down to, little shorts and some sort of shirt or something kind of easy to wear. Again, you don't want to be in that Chewbacca outfit in 80 degrees and huge humidity. So be aware of that as you go on. And my last tip about costumes I'll give you before you go out is test them before you actually get out to the race. You don't want to be out there, 3 miles into a half marathon and the costume is rubbing against you incorrectly, chafing you. It's bumping into other runners, whatever the case may be. I know it looks silly sometimes to be running out in your neighborhood with your fairy wings on or whatever it might be, your Star Wars outfit, whatever it might be. But really it is important to get out there and run a couple miles and just kind of give it a test run, pun intended, as you get out there to get ready for this race, so you're not caught off guard midway through it.
Right. And one other little thing associated with that you've shared with me is that, especially for the colder weather, if you do have the need to put on a jacket, but you want to you just need it at the beginning of the race, is you can have what they call a throwaway jacket, and it's just, something that maybe you're certainly willing to part with, and you can have it at the, while you're waiting to start your run, and then you can take it off during the run, and the Disney company collects those and they give it to the homeless, and so it kind of has a nice dual purpose.
And that goes for anywhere on the route. Say you start off cold, but like mile 2, you're starting to really warm up or whatever. If it's a longer race, mile 1, whatever, you can leave it anywhere along the course, and they'll pick it up and take it to these charities. So. That is another great tip.
All right.
So that's it. We've again broken the record. We've gone over an hour for another podcast. So we keep going longer and longer, but we have a lot to say, and we love spending the time with you. So thank you again for sharing this much time, especially this much time with us. We really appreciate you. Next week's show, it's Comic-Con time here in San Diego, where we're based out of. So we'll be discussing Comic-Con, what the news is, Disney and Marvel and Star Wars related that comes out of Comic-Con. We'll be talking about anything that we have out there. I believe our other son, Nick, is going out to Comic-Con. I'm going to try and tab him for some inside news. Unfortunately, we have some things that we're not going to let us to get out there, but we will be at one thing Comic-Con related, and that's at the D23 member mixer that's happening downtown next Saturday on the 21st. Yeah, based on, it's going to be themed to Nightmare Before Christmas, and I'm looking forward to going to that. And if you happen to be going to that as well, please find us, come tell us you listen to the podcast. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to meet you. Come by and say hi. Or if you know anybody that's going out there, tell them we're going to be out there. Tell them about the podcast, because we'd love you to share it with everybody you know.
Right.
But tell them we'll be out there, and we'd love to talk with them as well. So that's it. Follow us on social media, as I've said before, Twitter, at Hyperion Podcast, Facebook and Instagram at Hyperion Adventures Podcast, on the web, HyperionAdventurespodcast.com. You can email us if there's anything you want to talk about, if you want to be a part of the show, if you want to be, have a tip, if you just want to say hi, if you have something that we glossed over, like all these running tips we talked about, something we want us to go over a little more specifically, please contact us. You can email us at HyperionAdventurespodcast@gmail.com. Find us on SoundCloud and Stitcher. You can subscribe to us, iTunes, Google Play Music. We'll come right to your phone or device. And if you have some time when you're on these sites, please give us a review. And we're not going to try and ask too much of you, but if you can give us a little review, that'll be really appreciated. Believe it helps other people like you who kind of like the same things you do find our show. And plus, we just appreciate knowing what you think of our show.
Exactly.
So that's it. Again, thank you for listening to the Hyperion Adventures podcast. I'm Tom.
I'm Michelle.
And we hope you have another magical week.